Senator Brandt coming to you with our Roundhouse Rundown. Um, First of all, today, I want to talk about that today is 9/11. And, you know, I think all of us who were old enough to remember exactly what we were doing, exactly where we were. Um, I was actually pastoring in California at the time, and one of my elderly parishioners called me. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh no, what's going on? And she called and said, you got to turn on the TV right now. And turned on the TV and was literally glued to the TV for hours watching the whole situation unfold, the attack unfold. This was a really difficult and scary time for us as a country. And so today I think we should I hope all of you will take some time and remember what happened. And I think we all need to be, really careful that we never forget how vulnerable we were then, and make sure we never get in that position again. Because one thing I do know is the terrorist group who attacked us back in 2001, they have not given up. They still want to cause us harm. Right now, they're a little distracted with the whole situation in Israel. But their goal is still to bring down the United States. And they will do it any way they can. We want to talk a little bit about the debate from last night and go into some of that. And I think you'll see how some of that actually ties in to remembering 9/11 and the security and not forgetting and not letting ourselves become complacent so that we don't open ourselves up to that kind of attack again. And I think that we need to make sure that we have a strong president so that we can do that. So I want to talk quite a bit about the debate. My producer here with me today, he was born, but just barely. He was like a year old when the attacks happened. And I think one of the things we need to do is, as people, again, who were old enough to remember what happened. I was about 8 years out of the Air Force at that point, and my first reaction was, I wish I could go back in to defend our country. But I got out on disability, so there's no way I could go back in, or I would have signed up that day. But we need to make sure that we teach our children and that we pass on what happened to our children. Not to scare them, but we teach history so history won't repeat itself. And we need to teach the history of what happened on 9/11. So just take a couple minutes today, remember what happened, remember the families who lost loved ones that day. But I think, this also gives us an opportunity to remember, the way we came together as a country the next day. We grieved, and then we joined together. There was no Republican and Democrat. We came together as a country, as Americans, behind our president and said with him that this will not go unanswered. We became a unified country. Unfortunately, what we've seen since then is our country just become more and more divided, with the extremes of both parties trying to push the country to the extreme of the left or the extreme of the right. And I tell you, I don't think that the extreme of either one is good for us. So before we really talk about the debate, let's do a little pre-talk, right? So if you look back, you look through some of our videos we posted. I did a pre-debate press conference last night. We recorded the whole thing because, the press doesn't really report the whole press conference. They took little snippets. So, go back and look at that. It's only about 7 minutes long. Take a look at what the pre-press conference we talked about. I was with Richard Grenell, who was the National Security Advisor for President Trump. So take a look at that and see what we talked about. And I think it's perfect for coming in to this post-debate now, where we talk about what happened during the debate. One thing I do want to talk about, and I'll bring it up again in a little bit, but I think what we have to first acknowledge is that this debate was a 3-on-1, right? The moderator's bias came through so obviously that even a deaf person could tell that they were biased against Trump. So Trump didn't only have to debate Kamala Harris, but he had to debate the moderators interrupting several times and honestly incorrectly correcting what he said. Several times they just flat out lied and knew it and say, "Oh, Mr. President, that's not, what this shows." And you go back and you look at it and say, "Well, yeah, actually it was." With Kamala Harris, she was lying all the way through. In fact, almost everything that came out of her mouth was a lie. And they never once, not once, did they fact check her. But they fact checked President Trump at least 6 times. So I think that's just one of the things that we have to understand, is we're never going to, as Republicans, get a fair shake when it comes to the mainstream media. It's just not going to happen. They don't care about being journalists anymore. They are literally just operatives of the Democrat Party. So let's talk about the debate a little bit, and the big difference I think between the two is that Trump gave us specifics, and it's not like we didn't know what he's going to do when he becomes president, right? We had him for president for 4 years. We know exactly what he's going to do when he becomes president. But he still told us, these are the things we're going to do in my administration. Whereas with Vice President Harris, who's part of the current administration, all we heard was a bunch of nothing. We just spin on this and spin on that, but never anything about what she's going to do, what her policies are, and if she was not spinning, she was lying. There's just, I lost count of all the lies that she told, that the moderators never once interjected and said, well, that's just a flat out lie. Because they're not going to do that, because their goal last night, both the Harris campaign and the moderators, their goal last night was to get Kamala Harris elected. That's their goal. So all we heard from her was a lot of lies. What we heard from Trump is, these are the things that I did as president, and these are the things that we will do when I'm president again. Now, right off the bat, we started the debate, and the moderators asked the question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And I want to ask you that question today. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And what I'm going to challenge you to not do is, don't do like Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris pivoted and didn't answer the question at all. Now that is a tactic, right, in politics. But this is someone who has been in the race for a little over 30 days. Someone who we really know very little about, because in our country, the vice president doesn't do a whole lot. And they're really not the person front and center when it comes to press. They don't do a lot of press conferences. Although you can look back over the last 3.5 years and see, a lot of the talk shows that Harris did. And I would encourage you to do so. It's quite hilarious. But you can look back and see that. But what she did was pivot and talked about her childhood and basically how she grew up. She did not address at all whether the American people are better off today than they were 4 years ago. And I think anyone who is being honest with themselves has to say, no, I'm not. you have to look at and say, there's no way I'm better off today. Because I go to the grocery store and it costs me double what it cost me 4 years ago to buy groceries. Car insurance skyrocketed. Homeowners insurance skyrocketed. Oh, buying a house, double what you would have paid 4 years ago. When you look at the average payment, mortgage payment, double from 4 years ago. The Harris-Biden administration have made it almost impossible for the middle class to survive. You're either going into poverty or you've got to somehow get rich. Because in the middle class, it's almost impossible to even survive in this country right now because of the cost of living that has skyrocketed under the Harris-Biden administration. Then right away, Kamala Harris goes into one of her first lies. One of the first things she says is she talks about Project 2025. Now look, I have been a lifelong Republican, okay? I have never been an independent, a libertarian, or a Democrat. Never in my lifetime. I had no idea what Project 2025 is. None. It is not something that the Republican Party's putting out. It is not something that Trump's campaign is putting out. It is a total lie by Kamala Harris. It has been debunked by several liberal newspapers. I'm not talking about conservative newspapers. There barely are any. We're talking about even the liberal media has said this is an absolute lie, that this is not Trump's plan for the country. What do we know about Project 2025? Once I heard about it about a month ago, I found out one thing about it, and that's all I needed to know. It's put out by the Heritage Foundation. That's it. I've not read it, and Trump is right last night to say I didn't read it and I'm not going to read it. Trump doesn't need to read about this project that this group put together. I don't care what you think about the group, but it's not Republican playbook. It's not the Trump's playbook. But maybe we could look at Harris's side and the playbook that she has, right? Because what she has is the Marxist playbook. What she wants to do is take our country and make it a Marxist country. She wants to turn us into a communist country. So right off the bat, she comes out with a complete lie, already been debunked by everyone. Trump flat out again says, I have nothing to do with it. I've never read it. I don't plan to read it. It's not part of what I'm going to do as my administration. And then just a minute later, she comes with another lie. Again, something that Trump has said ain't going to happen. In fact, you can look at the 4 years I was in office. It didn't happen then. It's not going to happen in the next time I have 4 years in office. And that is Kamala Harris claimed that Trump was going to ban abortion completely. Make it illegal in the United States to have an abortion. That is a complete lie. Let me tell you this. If Trump was going to do that, he would have done it in 2016 when he was president and had both chambers. That's when he would have done that. But he didn't, and he's not going to if he's president again. What Trump did was made sure that we had the right people in the Supreme Court to actually look at the Constitution and the decision that was made in Roe v. Wade. And the Supreme Court said the decision 50 years ago was wrong. And this is really a decision for the states. So it's actually much more honest to ask me that question as a state senator or someone running for the legislature than it is to ask President Trump. Because the decision by the Supreme Court says That decision is a state decision because of the 10th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States says if it's not clearly covered in the Constitution, then it is a role for the states to decide. And this is something for states to decide. That's it. Then another lie, and this one's really, I feel like this is a really bad lie. Okay? When they were talking about wars, and Trump was talking about, during his administration, Russia did not attack Ukraine. True. During his administration, Hamas didn't dare attack Israel. True. Kamala Harris claimed that there are no troops in harm's way under the Biden administration. Well, first of all, we know that during the Afghanistan withdrawal, 13 troops were not just in harm's way, they died. But what we know right now, and the press has quit covering it, I don't know if you've noticed that, but what we know right now today is that Iran's proxies in Iraq attack our troops every single day. We have troops in Iraq, and Iran's proxies attack them every single day. Flat out, bold-faced lie. And to lie about something like that the day before 9/11, that is disrespecting our military. That is disrespecting every single person who serves now or has served in our military. And quite frankly, it pisses me off. We should be talking about the troops that are in harm's way and why they're in harm's way. And we should be talking about why is the Biden administration not doing anything about it? Why do they let this go unanswered? They know that this is coming from Iran. So why don't they do something about it? Your answer is as good as mine. I don't have one either. Except maybe that they're just weak. Harris said she was going to give details on her policies. And then she gave no details at all. She never did give any details on her policies. In fact, you can go to her website, you still don't see any details of her policies. We could do this all day long, right? But I want to talk about a couple of things really quickly that the debate that Harris didn't even address that affect New Mexico the most. She never really addressed her main role as vice president, and that is securing the border. What we know from her past is she does not believe in a border wall. That changed a couple of weeks ago, according to her. Okay, so you can either believe her lying words or you can believe her actions. And her actions have been, she's been in charge of the border for 3.5 years, almost 4 now. And the border under Kamala Harris has been the most porous border we've ever had. We might as well not even have one. Who knows how many people have really come across the border? One estimate is 15 million. There's other estimates that are 21 million. They go up from there. We have no idea how many people have come across the border. And that's where, for me, is one of the scariest things about what's happening today and how it ties into 9/11. With the border being that insecure, that porous, how many terrorists have come in? Are we just opening ourselves up for another 9/11? Now, they won't be able to use planes this time because we do a little bit better job. Well, let me put it this way. They won't be able to use airlines this time. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are other planes out there besides airlines. They won't be able to use the airlines this time. But we have no idea how many terrorists have come across our border. What we do know is that they had 2 that actually came through a checkpoint, got checked, were let in, that were on the terrorist watch list. Hello? And then they had to do a manhunt to find them because they just let them through. How many of, now you may think that terrorists are stupid. I don't. I think their beliefs are stupid, but they themselves are actually, unfortunately, really good at what they do. They're really good at killing people. And they know how to go around, and they pay the coyotes to get them around the checkpoints so they can get into the country and be one of the 2+ million gotaways that have come into the country with us having no idea who they are. Millions of people are in this country that we have no idea who they are. I guarantee you a lot of them are terrorists. The other thing that I think is really important to New Mexico is that Kamala Harris never addressed the crime problems in our country. Never addressed them. Crime is out of control. Crime has done nothing but increase under the Biden administration. Biden administration has done nothing about it. And Kamala Harris didn't even address it. And when Trump addressed it, the moderators lied and claimed that violent crime is down. Now, let me ask you this question, folks. Do you feel safer today than you felt 4 years ago? Because I don't. I'm not better off financially, and I'm not safer. And that's just violent crime. I'm not even talking about, I'm going to now, but I'm not even talking about all the fentanyl pouring across our country, all the fentanyl coming across that border. How many Americans have to die from fentanyl poisoning before Kamala Harris takes it seriously? I thought overall, for debating 3-on-1, Trump did a good job. There were some places that he missed some points that he could have made. Harris had a really good night. If you were watching the debate and you didn't want to hear any substance at all, you didn't want to hear anything meaningful at all, you really liked Harris's performance. And I think that's a good term for it. It was a performance. It was an act. In fact, I think the Oscars ought to consider giving her an Oscar because that was a really good act. She came out and stayed pretty calm, because it's pretty easy when you're in such a friendly audience and you know that the moderators are on your side, on your team. In fact, the moderators probably were there coaching her along the way. Well, this is how you should do this, and this is how you should do that. I'm not saying they were, but it would not surprise me. Trump missed a couple of opportunities, in my opinion, where he could have went back on her on some things. I thought when it came to the way she addressed Trump, she was disrespectful, she was rude, and she was angry. I thought Trump, for the most part, kept his composure. He never called her a name, and I don't think he did anything to hurt himself last night. But I will say, I don't think anyone's opinion was changed last night. I don't think anyone walked away from last night saying, now I know who to vote for. Because now I really understand what she's going to do when she's president. I'll tell you, You want to understand what she's going to do as president? Go look at what she said she was going to do the last time she ran for president. That's what she's going to do as president. If she was going to do something different, she would have a clear plan and be clearly out there telling everyone what she's going to do that's different, and she'd tell everyone why she changed her opinion. She's going to ban fracking just like she said she was going to do. And think about that, what that's going to do to New Mexico's economy. If they ban fracking, are they going to send us the billions of dollars that we use for education that we get from the oil and gas industry? No, they're not. She's going to ban guns, just like she said she was going to do. That's right. 2019, when she ran for office, she said she would do a forced gun buyback program. All you guys out there that have guns, all you guys out there that feel less safe today than 4 years ago, she's going to take away your one way of protecting yourself. I would say don't believe what she's telling you today, but she's not telling you anything today. So I can't say don't believe what she's telling you today. Believe what she said over the last 12 years. Because she's not telling us anything different today. Her campaign is claiming these things and that thing, but she's not telling us anything. And last night, she once again told us nothing. What's Trump going to do? He's going to come into office. He's going to lower taxes. He's going to get the economy back on track. He's going to make sure that American products aren't unfairly replaced on the shelves by foreign products. I think it's really clear what he's going to do. He's going to put America first. And let me tell you something, in New Mexico, we need to have a policy that puts New Mexico first. So I think we should join with Trump and run a New Mexico first campaign. Because New Mexico, I know some of you, if you're listening from out of state, you don't realize this, but New Mexico is part of America. Thank you guys. I appreciate you joining me today. I hope that was informative. I hope that you got a little bit out of that. And I hope you'll join us on the campaign trail as we put America and New Mexico first. God bless.